In today's video, I will tell you the 3 reasons why I love raised garden beds. Reason 1 is that you can really invest in some better soil. Because your garden bed is confined to a smaller area and it's raised, you can actually make a conscious effort to improve that soil. And every year you can add some organic matter to make that soil better. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do that if you had just an open garden. You can do that absolutely. However, I find that it's a lot easier with raised garden beds because it just focuses your attention to the area that you're growing. In my opinion, I think raised garden beds are actually a lot more appealing. Now, if you live in an urban area such as I do, especially if you plant stuff in your front yard where people that are going to be driving past are going to be looking at that, you should make that as best looking as you possibly can. Things that you grow at home, obviously they need to have the benefit of being grown at home and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, I think what you're doing shouldn't detract from how your area looks like, and sort of just having a visually appealing garden. And I think that raised garden beds do that a lot better. You can invest in edging and all those types of things if in a non-raised garden bed. But I think if you're planting vegetables and things like that, a lot of the times, perhaps, or sometimes I should say, some vegetables might not be the best looking and whatever else, if that's the only thing that you're after. But raised garden beds just makes everything look a little bit better. The third reason why I love raised garden beds is because you can actually section off different plants, and you can, by sectioning them off, you can focus on different plants and focus on different things, in my opinion. So when I plant, let's say, onions, I know that I'm planting onions in a particular area, in a particular garden bed, and I know next year to plant them somewhere else and so forth. So those are the type of advantages that I like to see in a raised garden bed, is the fact that you can just section things off and you can work on things every day. I might allocate to a garden bed, and it just makes it mentally a little bit easier to prepare and do. And sometimes I don't even sort of plant a garden bed because I want to give it a couple of months rest or something along those lines. So it's really, really nice in that way. My garden beds are not very tall. My garden beds are actually sort of 20 centimeters, most of them. Sometimes I might have it at 40 centimeters high or something along those lines. The only bad thing about it really is that if you've got small kids, and I do, they tend to love to jump off of the edging of the garden bed, and I've had a number of plants squashed because my son would go in there and he would jump off of it and he'd do all these things, which I love the fact that he's spending time outside. But if if I've spent a month trying to raise a seedling to sort of a good height and he just runs through it and wants to jump off it because jumping is the next coolest thing, well, that's the only bad side that I see in sort of garden beds. The only other thing, I suppose, a bonus like, or a bonus tip if you want to call it, is that when you have garden beds, I feel like if you want to put some irrigation system, you can sort of hide it a little bit better. If you want to add a sort of like a glass house or a greenhouse effect to it, you can buy or make lids for it and so forth. So those are the little tiny things that I will be looking at implementing, and I feel like with all the raised beds that I've done previously, that sort of stuff has been a lot easier to implement, because then you can sort of just plug the hose into your garden bed and sort of have the garden bed water itself and so forth. And I find that during summer to be very, very good. And I've had other systems as well where I just get a sprinkler, I just put it in the middle of the yard and just waters everything. The downside with that was that I was spending a lot of money on water, and it was a lot of times watering things that I didn't even need to water, like my concrete, for example. But I'm not saying that you can't implement the sprinklers and little droplets into non-raised garden bed. I just feel like it's a little bit cleaner and better to do it in a raised garden bed, and you can focus on the garden bed itself, if you know what I mean. The other thing is, what I've seen and what I'm thinking of doing myself, is that from the edge of the garden bed you can actually create some seating as well, so that if your garden beds are located next to, let's say, a patio or something along those lines, you can have a seat on one side and obviously the garden bed on the other, and when your guests come over and so forth, they can obviously sit down and all that sort of stuff while you still have a garden bed there. So there's a lot of advantages to having raised garden beds, and those are one of the sort of a couple of reasons why I chose to do raised garden beds. But I'd be interested to see how your garden looks like. Or tell me about it. Tell me I suppose the positives that we've had and the negatives, and perhaps we can learn from each other in the comments below. Anyway, take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.